welcome. It's that time of year when particularly me anyway, I'm sure many others start planning a motorcycle trip. And we've all probably, most of us have anyway, have toured extensively through the UK and might be thinking, shall we venture abroad this year? Perhaps we better go in a group, it'll be safer. Well, actually, there's nothing to worry about because travelling solo across Europe is absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend it. And to go along with that, I thought I'd offer you my top 5 tips. I was going to do 10, but I could probably do 20. But I thought I'd do 5 to get us going and see how you get on with that. And if you enjoy it, hopefully you will enjoy it. And those tips are going to cover all sorts of things from the planning stage, which will be tip number 1, by the way, right the way through to motorway and road travel, generally speaking, abroad. So, yeah, that's what's going to be coming up, and I hope that you will enjoy that, and I hope that you will actually subscribe and follow my videos because I've got a lot more in the can to do. I've done some in the past, but I really want to get involved in doing some more travelling ones on the bike this year, and I've got some trips set up that I'm going to be doing. One of them is quite a long one, heading right the way down through to Italy. So stick around, enjoy this, and I'll catch you as we go through the video. And as I say, if you can subscribe and tick the like button, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. It's tip 1. Plan your ride. It's straightforward enough, really. Have it in your head where you want to go, when you want to go, what time of year, how you're going to get there, and start formulating the plan. That'll include obviously what you have to do before you go away, get the bike ready, stuff like that. Get all your clothing sorted out. We'll talk about that. Documentation. We'll talk about that. The route you want to take, where you want to visit, and of course, most importantly, the time factor you've got, depending on how long you've got to undertake this trip. Get it all down on paper. Get it on a computer. Get it on your phone. Make a copy of it, obviously, and give that copy to your beloved ones because you're going to be travelling solo. And so you do need to keep in touch with people, as solos might want to be. There are other people back at home probably thinking about you, worrying about you. So it's very useful if you give them a bit of an idea of where you're going, and keep them up to date. Let them know if you change your plans. So yeah, make a plan, write a plan, and if you want to deviate, then you can do, but it all comes later in the plan. I'll talk about that as we go along. But tip number 1, is plan your ride. So, health insurance. Well, first of all, let me just say that none of us can predict what might happen while we're on the road. Illnesses do spring up. It might be a cough, it might be a cold, it might be something more serious. But as a solo traveller, of course, if you do have an issue, you're on your own, and you've got to deal with it because there's nobody else around you. You can't suddenly nip back home. You might be quite some distance from home, and I have known people who've sort of jumped back on their bike and struggled back to get home to go and see a doctor. But why need to do that when there's doctors and hospitals and everything else in the country you're going to? Okay, so they don't speak your language, possibly, but don't worry about it. They are the same as us, I can assure you. Having said that, of course, you will need some insurance because the cost of healthcare abroad can be quite expensive. So a good insurance for covering of that is obviously a good thing to have. There is like an e-hit card, which is an overseas kind of thing, but as we've separated from Europe, there's some doubt now as to just how valid that is. I've fortunately not, touch wood, had to use it, although I do carry one. But I do carry health insurance. And of course, there's various types of health insurance. You can get health insurance for one trip, or you can get an annual health insurance. The cost, of course, depends on how long you're going to be there and if you've got any medical issues already. As a 73-year-old, soon to be, my insurance gets more and more expensive because I'm more likely to go wrong. But certainly it's worth having it. So health insurance is something that I highly recommend. And as I did mention just in the previous tip section, As you enter the Schengen area now, you are quite likely to be asked. It's actually one of the 4 questions, I believe, on the new EEE system that says, "Do you have health insurance?" So they're obviously looking to make sure you have it. Um, if you get those questions, and there are 4 of them apparently, another one being, have you got sufficient funds for your trip? I suggest that you answer yes to everything, because if not, you might be pulled to one side and questioned more deeply by a human being this time. So, yeah, so that's a tip. Have your health insurance, but don't be afraid if you have an issue. You can use the facilities abroad, and they're very good. One other thing I would just mention on this health business is, of course, if you're riding a motorcycle solo, you might have a medical issue actually on the motorcycle. You might be up a mountain somewhere, miles from anywhere, and you may not have a phone signal. So it's up to you entirely as to how far you go with this. I mean, you can go over the top with this and have systems that you never ever use, but on the day you do want them, are worth paying for. And you could get some sort of personal beacon that tells people where you are, that runs off a GPS system, a global satellite type thing, which might be useful to carry if you're going on a sort of a really big adventure where you could possibly be stuck for some time without actually seeing anybody. I mean, God forbid you went off the road, you may not be found, and if you are unable to maneuver away from that position, some sort of beacon, some sort of communication system would be very, very useful, and it might not necessarily be that your phone would be the best option. So have a think about that one. Different day, so please excuse the change of clothing. Not really good to do that in a video. Suddenly changes. But it's given me time to think a little bit more about some of the things that you really should be thinking about. And this little section here, tip number 3, is about security. And it's one that is becoming ever more important. And I don't just mean about the actual security of actually locking your bike, because there's lots of things on the market, lots of ways of doing that. Light lock seems to be getting most of the attention at the moment, but I see Hip Lock have brought out a new disc lock, which looks extremely good. None of these are cheap, but then nor is your bike. But my real point about security was actually while you were travelling, and you and your bike as a solo traveller. So one of the main things I would first of all say is, of course, as a solo traveller, if you get off your bike to go for a coffee or go to a shop or go anywhere, there's just you, so you can't leave a friend with your bike, which you might do if there was more than one of you. So there lies the problem. It's all about how much gear you've got on your bike, what's stealable. My experiences over the last few years, I've been very lucky. I haven't been robbed or lost anything. But this is what I do. I pack the gear that I'm taking with me, and I pack as lightly as possible. But I pack it into my panniers, which, by the way, are not lockable. And then anything of value I put in a bag that I can take off the bike easily and take with me. So everything that I can't afford to lose, so that's camera gear, money, original paperwork, comes with me. So that if the bike is robbed, then the items that are going to be taken, if it's not the whole bike obviously, can be easily replaced. Regarding the security of the actual bike, well, really again that comes down, as I say, to a good lock, leaving it in a location perhaps where people can actually see it, not tucked away around a corner somewhere. And if you're not feeling happy about it, then my suggestion is don't leave it. When it comes to accommodation, I always go for accommodation where I can park my bike literally right where I am. So I don't use hotels, although a lot of hotels do have secure underground parking, and if that's your choice, then so be it. But I prefer to go on to parking areas, accommodation areas where parking is easy for me to observe, or at least hear the bike. I've got alarms on the bike, so if somebody moves the bike, I know that's actually happening. Obviously, having a tracker fitted to your bike would be a very useful thing. When it comes to security of your paperwork, then make sure, as I say, you have that all in one bag. Do backup copies, do put those elsewhere. Keep them on your phone, whatever. They're not normally accepted by the authorities. They want to see the originals. But if you've had the originals stolen, what better? So yes, that's my tip really for security. And just be very careful. I have heard of people who have booked into Airbnbs where they are not met by the owner. It's a lockbox, so there's no owner involved. And minutes after arriving and putting their or taking their bags from the bike to the apartment, their bike's been stolen because they didn't lock it, because they thought they had time to actually just transfer the baggage and put it all up there and it'd be fine. Whether that was a scam, who would ever know? But it does sound quite likely, doesn't it? Because the person who's actually receiving your messages, telling them when you're arriving, knows exactly when you're arriving. As you don't meet these people, who knows? Anyway, take care. Security. Think about it. So, accommodation. Well, there's three types really. Well, I suppose there's four. Three definitely. Camping, uh, independent accommodation like Airbnb, Booking.com, or hotels. What was the fourth, I hear you ask? Well, you could couch surf, couldn't you, if you know anybody over there, but that's a different matter. So, camping. Yeah, it's great. Does mean, of course, you've got to carry a lot of gear on your bike, and of course, weather is going to be a factor. It may not be such great weather, in which case camping is possibly not the greatest option. Personally, I don't go camping at all. I'm far too old. I like my creature comforts. So that leaves me with the option of going into rented accommodation, such as is supplied by Airbnb or Booking.com, or hotels. I have used hotels. I actually prefer to use the private rented accommodation. The company that I use, generally speaking, in fact nearly always now, is Airbnb. Why do I use Airbnb? Well, because they get each location is properly reviewed by the clients that are going in there, so I can get a good understanding of how good or how bad they actually are. Generally speaking, the ones I've been able to choose have been very good, and particularly travelling through Europe, as long as you stay away from the, one might say, the tourist hotspots, the accommodation costs are quite reasonable, and I generally budget around about €60 a night, which gives me accommodation, hot showers, somewhere to cook, and sometimes even a swimming pool. But the most important thing for me is it gives me parking directly at the location I'm staying, and literally within sight. So it's parked on the driveway. I would just say that a lot of the driveways, because these are private properties, do have gravel driveways, and there's kind of a little tip inside here. If you do arrive at one of these properties, my suggestion would be just to park just briefly on the road. Don't let your bike get out of sight, but just have a little walk in there, have a quick look around. And if it is gravel, pea gravel or whatever, and it's looking slightly downhill, think about that. Don't ride your bike straight in there, because if you do, you'll have had devil's own job trying to turn it around and get it back out. So that's one thing just to watch. The other thing I would say about using private accommodation for me, and it would apply with hotels as well, not so much on campsites, but booking in advance. How soon and how far in advance do you book? Well, my experience now tells me that I actually don't book more than probably about 2 to 3 days in advance of when I'm going to be in that area. And the reason being for that is because things might happen, things might change, weather might be awful, might slow me down. I might see somewhere that I think, oh, this is nice, I'll hang around for a day or two. Or I might change my route completely. So have a little look at the cancellation fees when you enter into the purchasing of one of these type properties. I always go for the ones where I can cancel at least sort of 2 days before, and get all my money back. There's a lot of them that when you book them, you can't get your money back at all. That's it, done. Quite a few of them, you can get a certain amount of money depending on how soon or how late you cancel. So just look at that one before you commit to booking. Hotels, as I say, probably do a similar thing. I don't use hotels very often. One of the good things about using accommodation that you can have catering of your own, of course, is you cook your own meals, and you can literally just go and buy yourself a tin of cassoulet if you're in France or whatever, and cook your own meals, which is great. It saves a lot of money. It means that you can eat what you want. If you don't want to eat a lot, you don't have to. You don't have to sit in a restaurant on your own, Billy no mates. And of course, it's considerably cheaper. So that's one of the considerations that I take into being when I look at accommodation, is somewhere that I can actually prepare food. And the other thing to bear in mind, of course, with accommodation is don't necessarily always want to stop there just for one night. And in fact, quite a few accommodations now only allow you to book for a minimum of, say, 2 or 3 nights. So have a look at that as well. The benefit of booking a couple of nights, well, arriving on the very first night, of course, you can empty the contents of your panniers, take off all your luggage, leave it in your Airbnb or your hotel, and that gives you freedom then to go out on the bike, explore a little bit about without worrying about stuff being stolen from your bike. And we did talk about security on bikes. One of the things I forgot to mention is jackets and helmets. Obviously, helmet locks are quite popular these days. Saves you carrying your helmet around with you. Definitely advisable. Just if you've got a cardo or a cinder on the side of it, just maybe take that off. But when it comes to jackets or trousers, leggings, and it's a hot day, you don't want to carry them around with you. I suggest to you that you could possibly use one of these little wire strops. They're about a metre long. They roll up to nothing, and you can thread them through the arms or through the legs of your jacket, and then just very carefully just pin that up onto the bike and lock it, and then it's very unlikely somebody's going to come and cut through a cable to steal your jacket. They might, but they might not. And as I say, certainly when it's hot weather, you don't want to be walking around the town looking for a coffee with all your gear still on. So those are my tips, and that's the tips on accommodation. So look very closely, and as I say, I found some beauties. It's my final tip 5 of this video, and as I say, there may well be a follow-up video because I can think of a load more. Roads and breakdowns. Let's cover roads first. 3 types of roads, really. In most countries, that's a sort of very minor road, a major road, and a motorway or an autoroute or autovia, depending what country you're in. And lots of you were probably saying to me straight away, "Well, that's fine. I don't use auto routes or autovias." And I think all of us would like to say the same thing, really, but it's not always necessarily the case, because depending on the time restraints of our trip, we may have to use an auto route occasionally. Generally speaking, I've found that most of the minor roads are very quiet, and generally in very good condition. The major roads are more direct roads. Again, obviously, I mostly I found them to be in very good condition in most of the European countries that I visited. That's not many, but it's quite a big area. Um, and I found them to be very good. Obviously, slightly more traffic. And then we come down to motorways, autovias, that kind of thing, auto routes in France, and whether we should use them or should not. And of course, one of the problems with them is, of course, is you have to pay. But if you work out the factor of the time that you're saving against what you're paying, generally speaking, I found that to be not too bad. Motorcycles aren't charged that much on autoroutes, motorways. So it's down to you, absolutely down to you. But there is one slight issue with using autoroutes or peages or whatever you want to call them, i.e., you're paying. And that, of course, is that you have to pay and you have to take a ticket, and then you have to put your ticket back in the machine, and you have to then arrange payment through, generally speaking, through your card. None of them take cash anymore at all. It's all cards. Some you can pay online. Some of the new ones, I think the new French ones now have got a thing called, I think it's called Free Flow or something like that, where you don't get the option to pay actually on the at the barriers, because there isn't a barrier. It's an overhead gantry. Although you can pay at the pay stations in the next aire de service or aire de repose. I've noticed. Check all this when you've done your route, which we talked about. Tip 1 really. Check to see what roads you're going to go on, and to see whether they are péage, whether they're free flow, whether they're free sections. A lot of the sections now in Portugal, as of January 2025, were made free, so the overhead barriers aren't doing anything, but you won't know that. So again, do your research. Going back to the barriers and this awful business, if you're on a motorcycle of having to, because you've got your gloves on, don't forget they're a legal requirement in nearly all European countries. Make sure that, of course, that when you go to the thing, that you have the ability to get your glove off quick. Normally mine goes into my mouth while I take the ticket out, which I then hold onto with my hand, and then I negotiate through the barrier, and it's gone up and out to the other side, crossing lanes. And this is a tip for you: if you're going to do this, choose the right-hand lane if you can, if it's not a lorry lane, because then you're not far away from the actual parking, just the other side. If you choose the left-hand lane, you've got to cross about 7 lanes of traffic in a very short distance to get into the parking area, so you can put your ticket away, put your gloves back on, and all the rest of it. That, of course, has then got to be repeated when you get to the, the area where you're going to come off. Only this time it's more complicated because the ticket has to go in, it has to be read, it will then flash up the price, so you then have to pull out your card. It's a cashless, a cardless thing, just tap it on the thing. But that's okay. But as I say, all this has got to be done while you've got traffic behind you. It might be pouring down with rain, and again you've got to negotiate across the road to get to the car park to put all that stuff away again, and it's a real faff. I've done it so many times; it's a real nightmare. But you can, if you want to, of course, use one of these gadgets that clips on a motorcycle, either to the windscreen, or it will go on to your arm in like a little pad, which is like the security guys at the local disco club or evening nightclub, whatever what I'm trying to say. So the tag is actually on your arm. I do know people who have put it in their pocket, top pocket, and it has worked. But it apparently doesn't always work. So basically, although it doesn't need to be in actual true sight of the machinery, it's got to be within an area where they can read it. And basically, what happens is you approach through the T indicated lanes tag. It might have a different symbol, but they're pretty easy to discover. And you approach these doing around about 30 kilometres, sometimes it might be 20. And as you approach at that speed, you get towards the barrier, it'll pop up, your little machine beep, you probably won't hear it, but it will do. And it won't open unless it beeps anyway. And through you go. And then you get to pay for that at the end of the month. Now, there are a couple of companies in the UK that do this. Actually, there's quite a few, but there's two that one I would highly recommend, and there's another one. So I recommend Immovis Tag. There's a setup fee, there's a monthly charge, administration charge, while you're using the machine, sensor, call it what you will, and there is a charge to actually get it from them, and that charge to get it from them is €20. So it costs you €20 to get it, but when you hand it back, you get €20 back. So you're renting it basically free of charge. Well, not free of charge, but there's a fixed price, and you get that money back. To what I'm trying to say. I mean, look at it online. I think it's €10 setup fee and a €10 administration fee. So you're probably looking at, if you get one for just one country, and they do vary for different countries. I know France is an independent one. If you go to Spain and Portugal, the same machine operates in both those countries, and there is another company that has a system that actually works in any country, but that's all done from abroad, and I have heard that they won't accept certain UK bank accounts to draw the money from, and they do the exchange rates. It might not necessarily be in your favour, so do your research on it, but I would highly recommend that you use the system, because it really is, I consider, to be worth doing. So that's one of the things that you want to bear in mind. Now, there was something else I was going to mention. I'll just see what I put down here. Oh yeah, breakdowns. So obviously, don't go abroad without some form of breakdown insurance. And just going slightly back to motorways again, if you have breakdown insurance, you won't necessarily be able to use your breakdown company on a motorway, because very often that's covered by an independent company. They will come and get you, and they will take you off the motorway, where you will then be picked up by your breakdown company. There'll probably be a charge for that. Again, just do your research on it. Breaking down as a solo rider obviously is a pain, because you're on your own, so no friends can go riding off to get assistance for you. It's down to you. So obviously you're going to need your communications to get through to your breakdown company. Hopefully you're in an area where you can do that. If it's something like a flat tyre and you've got a tubeless tyre system, obviously you can deal with that because you can plug it. If you're unfortunate enough to be like me and have a tubed tyre, you can't do that. So I recommend that you do take spare tubes with you in case the garage that you go to, who can quite obviously fix your tyre, preferably obviously a motorcycle garage, so they know about putting the balance of the wheel back into alignment and the chain tension or belt tension, whatever. But yeah, take that tube with you, so you've got that. And one other little tip on the back of all this is I would suggest that you, when you've planned your route, locate some main dealers for your particular type of bike, make a bike or whatever. So if you do have a problem and breakdown comes and gets you and says, where do you want to go to, rather than you scratching your own thinking, well, I don't know where I want to go to, you can get them to take you to the nearest main dealer if they'll do that. And just on talking about main dealerships, a lot of the main dealerships obviously will be in cities, and a lot of cities now have what we like the equivalent of our ULEZ zones, where you have to pay to go into them. Certainly some in France, you have to have what's called a crit d'air, which gives the sort of emissions of your bike and allows you to travel in and out of cities. If you don't have that, you could face a fine of, I think, up to €100. And when you consider the crit d'air is goes on your bike once you've got it, it's for the lifetime of the bike, and it's at €4.75 or thereabouts. But be careful where you buy it from. Only buy it from the French authority. If you buy it from a online, you can get them here type organisation, I have heard of fees of up to £100 for them, and that is ridiculous. That's not right. Go direct to the French website. There's a section on there where you click for English, and you are a foreign vehicle. There's a section for that as well, and then it tells you how much it costs. You pay online, and about a fortnight later it arrives. So guarantee that that's a good thing to do. So yeah, so that's really my tips on breakdowns. Be prepared for them. They are likely to happen, and they can ruin your trip. And again, that's one of the reasons why I suggested in the previous section about booking accommodation and getting the places where you can get your money back if you're delayed. So yeah, so that's my 5 tips. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll probably be doing another one because I can think of loads of other things. And if you've got any questions that you would like to ask me about travelling abroad on your own, then please do leave some comments, and I will obviously look forward to getting back to you on that one. And I'll see you on the next video. Don't forget, please do subscribe. Tick that like button. Subscribing does help. It doesn't cost you a penny. It helps this channel to grow, and I want it to grow. I want to do lots more on it. I've got some big trips coming up, and I want to be able to take you with me, and I want you to enjoy them, and I want you to learn from them. If that helps you, you may be telling, to have things that you could tell me that I don't know about, and I'll always be very grateful to hear those. So again, thanks for watching. Stay safe on those roads. Catch you next time.